you all very much for this opportunity. We are thrilled, absolutely thrilled that Notions has picked up the full suite, if you will, of our products. We can't tell you how much we're thrilled to be represented by you all. So we're really looking forward to this, and thank you again for the opportunity to present with you all today. So Artesprix is born from my parent company. The parent company is called Artesprix Technologies, and Artesprix Technologies is a market-leading provider of high-performance chemistries serving a wide range of industries. Artesprix and our flagship product, Permanent Heat Transfer Markers, was created in 2018 in the company's specialty printing division to address the high cost of traditional sublimation. Okay, guys, now we're going to do a demo, which is, of course, everybody's favorite part, so including mine. First things first is you want to make sure that your heat source is heating up. Now, I have a Cricut Easy Press. This is the Easy Press 1. This only goes to 360 degrees, but you can certainly still use it, okay? Then we also have a home iron. Home irons are great for small projects, the bag tags, the bookmarks, the keychains, those small projects that fit within this space of the home iron. It's obviously not hot, okay? Right here in the center, you just basically want to avoid the holes, because wherever there's holes, that means there's no heat, right? And you don't go like this. This is a no-no, because then you will have a ghost image, right? So basically you want to use a tile technique, right? Now, if your blank is bigger than your heat source, then basically what you want to do is you just want to do it a little bit longer. So maybe you do it like this, and then you do it like this, and like this, and like this. The silicone mat and these blanks that are specifically made for sublimation, it's not going to hurt it. Especially, and same with the protective paper, the heat tape, everything here is made for high heat for long periods of time. So I like to say it's better to be safe than sorry and give it extra heat, temperature, and time, because in traditional sublimation, like for example, if you use black and you do it too long, it'll change the color. It'll almost look brown. That really doesn't happen with our products, which is great news. So that's just something to consider. I'm going to go ahead and use our Artesprix heat press, because another saying we have around here, the better the tools, the better the result. And a lot of your maker space, or excuse me, a lot of the makers that you guys use, they have heat presses in their maker space. But you also know that, and I'm sure your gears are turning and you're thinking to yourself, like, the stampers, right? We have just given them a million new ways to use their their stamps. They probably don't have a heat press yet, right? We have to get them to dip their toes in the water. Same with like something like a quilt shop. They probably don't have a heat press. So they'll start with the little projects like the bag tags, and they'll experiment with their home iron. And as they fall in love, and they will graduate with Iron-on-Ink and hopefully upgrade to a heat press. So the first thing that we need is copy paper. I'm going to get another piece of copy paper, because it's a good idea we like to say you want to treat our markers like a Sharpie. It's just a good idea to have another piece of paper underneath. Okay, so the first thing you're going to want to do is we're going to do a maple bag tag, and we're also going to do a metal bag tag. And the reason I decided to choose these is because, one, they're double-sided, so if we have enough time, I'll do both sides and show you how that's done. And then the other reason I think it's nice to see the differentiation between stark white and the maple. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to trace your blank with a pencil. We always recommend tracing it with a pencil, because then otherwise this ink in these markers, let me make sure you can see them, it's very powerful, okay? So wherever you color, if you get it on the outside of your blank, when you go to transfer, you're going to get, like, let's say you're like, oh, I'm going to just trace with the black marker. And then you use all these beautiful colors. Well, when you go to transfer, all that black that was on the outside is now going to be on your blank. So pencil does not transfer. So you can get creative. You can write all over the place. Don't have to erase anything. Pencil does not transfer. So I'm going to go ahead and trace my bag tag, and I also recommend tracing the little hang hole at the top, so then that way you know you know, which way it'll hang, or if you draw something, you know, you won't lose it in the hole because there's nowhere for it to be transferred to. So I have that, and I'm actually going to go ahead and do it twice. So then that way I can have my front and my back, or, you know, I can also have this other one for the maple because they are the same size. So all the bag tags come in 3 different finishes. Notions has all of them, metal, plastic, and maple, which is this poly-coated wood, and the keychains are in the same finishes. And everything comes with, you know, a nice little attachment like a bag tag loop or a little key tab so they can go ahead and use it right away. Okay, so I have our sublimation stamps. These are our hand lettered basics. It's hello, friend, peace, love, happy, woof, and travel. And then I also have our acrylic block. Any acrylic block will work, but we just, you know, wanted to make sure we had everything that anybody would need in case they weren't already a stamper, right? Because I've got traditional sublimation people who are like now getting into stamps, and they think stamps are wood blocks with rubber, and I'm teaching them all about 2020 stamps. So that's why we have this. So, but any acrylic block will do, and they're welcome to use any cling stamps that are designed. But again, you just want to avoid traditional stamps that have text because they're just not made for sublimation. So I'm going to go ahead and do, let's do peace, love, travel, because it's a bag tag, right? That sounds good. And I'm just going to go ahead and get these on my acrylic block here, and it has grid lines, which is really nice. You can get everything lined up just so. And it actually just also works out that the acrylic block is pretty similar to the size of the bag tag, so that's nice. So I'm just going to do peace, love, and travel. Let me get these on here. And travel. Okay, and then we have our sublimation ink pad. Nothing out of the ordinary at this step, right? We're just going to take it and we're going to stamp it in our ink. And like I mentioned, we also have recently just come out with the sublimation ink refill. So everyone's very excited about that. And that's right here. So they can refill their stamp pad as they need. And then of course, we've just been getting creative in other ways, you know, outside of just refilling your stamp pad with it, which has been really fun. Okay, so I've got my ink all stamped up, and I'm just going to go ahead and line it up and stamp. And these are just great for those who are not artistically inclined, right? Now, I will tell you, it's a great idea to have a stamp chamois. I'm just using a paper towel and water. You know, as I mentioned, our inks are very powerful, so it's just great to give them a nice wipe down after you use them, just to make sure, you know, if you're using them for other things besides sublimation, not these because they're for text, but other stamps, you just want to keep them clean. Okay, I'm going to put my lid back on my sublimation stamp pad. So here is my, I'm sure you guys can see it. Oh, how's that? So you guys can see that the text is mirrored. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and embellish with my sublimation markers. I have colors from all 5 packs here in front of me. And then you might also notice that the markers are tipped down. This is very important. Markers should be stored horizontally when not in use, and then 10 to 15 minutes before use, you want to put them tipped down. Now, our markers last a very, very long time. If you were to take a marker and draw one straight line, it would go over 4 football fields, okay? So very, very long time, and that's why storage is so important, because there's a lot of ink in here. So if you leave it tipped down, it's all going to go to the bottom. If you leave it like this, it's all going to go like this. So if you do leave them tipped down, just tip them like this, right? And then if let's say something's been unloved, as we call it, or maybe not used for like 5 months, instead of it being like tipped down for 10 minutes, you might need to put it down for like 20 minutes. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so I'm just going to add a bunch of color to my design here. And I have to tell you guys, I am the salesperson, I don't do the weekly live. So forgive me for lack of wow here, you know. But you know what? That's what stencils, stamps, electronic cutting machines, there are so many ways that people can get creative with this. So let me do blue. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, so now I've got green, blue, and then let's do some red. Okay, and then I'm just gonna add some, just some squigglies, because that's my artistic ability. And the biggest thing about this, guys, is it's permanent, right? Once it transfers to the bag tag, it's going to be there for a lifetime. If someone says, you know, how long is this going to last, right? In short, it will last as long as the blank will last. So like, for example, let's say the pet bandana, right? We'll use that as an example. So you make the pet bandana and you wash it, and your little fur friend is like loving it and they wear it all the time, and you've got to wash it all the time. The design in the pet bandana will last longer than the pet bandana itself. So like that one, the Superman one, let's use that as an example. There wasn't a design on either tail end of the bandana. That fabric on the end will start to, now I'm talking like 100 washes. I mean, I'm talking like triple digit amount of washes. The fabric will start to like thin wherever their design is, so it'll last, the design will actually last longer than the fabric. So it's pretty cool. Okay, guys, here is my finished project. Very colorful. I've got pink, yellow, green, blue, red, and the black from the sublimation stamp pad. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it out. Now, so tempted, because that's what we were taught in school, right, is to cut on the line, right? You don't want to do that because we need space to add our heat tape, and we don't want to put the heat tape over the design because it's heat resistant tape, and we need the heat in order to do the transfer. Now, if let's say I'm a lefty, which I'm not, but let's say I am, or I'm going a certain way, and you do the classic smudge, right, with your hand, you can put a piece of heat tape over that smudge and it won't transfer, which is really cool. So the heat tape is used for a few things, but just good to know in that case. So here you guys can see I have a nice little bit of space on all four sides, so I have room to tape. So we're gonna go ahead and take our bag tag, and like this is our metal bag tag. Like I said, it's double-sided. I'm gonna line it up and, you know, put it right in my little template that I created with my pencil. And then I'm gonna take our Artesprix heat tape, which is great. This is great because it fits in a standard tape dispenser. And I'm only going to use 2 pieces because I'm using a heat press. If you were using a craft iron, as I call it, the Cricut Easy Press, or a home iron, you need more tape because you are the press as the human element, and we do not want any shifting. So that tape will assist in the process of making sure everything goes smoothly. So just rule of thumb, if you're using a home iron or a Cricut Easy Press, the more tape, the better. If you're using a heat press, you just need a couple pieces. So there we go, guys. That's what it looks like, okay? And now we're gonna make, as we call it, our sublimation sandwich. So this is protective siliconized paper. And this is used, sublimation professionals call this blowout paper, right? Because it's gonna catch all the ink that, now I didn't color outside the lines, okay? But if, let's say you're doing a full design, you do want to color outside the lines because you don't want any blank spots between the end of your design and the edge. So it's better to color outside the design. And so that's why you need this paper to protect your basically your heat source or your heat plate and the heat pad underneath. That's why we made the Project Siliconized protective mat. That's why we made it black. So then that way, if there's any hiccups or anything like that, it hides it all. You won't see it. And you guys would know better than me, but there are a lot of other reasons why people would want this in their makerspace. People have told me for the dots, the I don't know, the jewels, the diamond, whatever, all those things. They love it because it's just got that soft you know, that little give, so they love that. So there are probably other areas that can be used. So anyway, so I just cut them out the same size as my piece of paper, and we're gonna put one on the bottom and one on the top. Okay, and so that's what we call the sublimation sandwich. So I've got my top piece of protective paper, which is like my bread. Then you might notice I have flipped my project over so that way my design is on top. Okay, then I've got my blank, and then I've got my other piece of protective paper. And now we're gonna put it in the heat press. The metal bag tag is 45 seconds, and I can't, I can't reiterate this enough. Design has to be face down and on top because it has to touch, not directly because we have that piece of protective paper, but it has to touch the heat plate in order for it to go. So I'm gonna put that in, and it's set for 45 seconds. So that's gonna go. So in the meantime, I'm gonna go ahead and start my other one.
Ashley, can I ask a question?
Please.
The group, somebody has posted a question. Is the protective paper the same as parchment paper?
No, it is not. And I actually we have an affiliate program, and I actually just went over this with my affiliates. It's almost like a good, better, best situation, right? Okay, so parchment paper is a good option. It's not the best option because this paper can be reused. That parchment paper cannot be reused. And if you're doing a lot of projects, you're going to go through a lot of protective paper. So parchment paper is a good option, right? Because at least it's meant to be used with high heat. We joke, but it's also true, that we're chemists gone crafters. We truly are. So we're all about having fun and creating fun things, but first and foremost is safety. We can't help ourselves. Everything goes through rigorous testing, and through environmental medicine and everything like that. And parchment paper, like I said, is at least meant to be used with heat, but butcher paper is not meant to be used with heat. So this is kind of a good thing to discuss real quickly before we do the reveal. Right now, or for the most part, people are using their easy presses or heat presses for heat transfer vinyl, right? Before, if they weren't already doing sublimation, then they're using it for heat transfer vinyl. Heat transfer vinyl is like what? 280, 340, like really doesn't get up to that high heat. So that's why they're used to parchment paper and butcher paper and that kind of thing. Well, now we've upped it 50 degrees and we're kicking up the time, right? Heat transfer vinyl is like 10 seconds, boom, we're done. We're like, oh yeah, that decorative metal panel, 90 degrees. These mats, this butcher paper, none of that is meant for that high heat. And when you're using butcher paper at that high heat, you could be omitting unknown substances into the air because it has this waxy surface that isn't meant for heat. So you just have no idea what's going on. So that's why we like the siliconized protective paper, because it is truly meant for this purpose. Now, those makers are resourceful. I don't have to tell you guys. Well, we can tell them till we're blue in the face, but they're going to do whatever they want anyway. Okay, but at least now you know, good, better, good, not so good, right? So this is metal, as I mentioned. So this is going to be very hot because, in sciencey, metal absorbs heat, holds it longer. So I'm going to put on my heat gloves. Whereas if this was a pet bandana, like fabric or the zip case, I could probably pick it up with my hands. So, again, I didn't color outside the lines, so no ink got on either piece of protective paper. So I'm going to use these both again for our next project. Okay, so here we go. We invented this thing called the peak test. So we peek before we move any of our tape, and then I see that I got a good transfer, and voila, I remove, and there we go. Can everybody see? Awesome. So another common question is, can you press again, right? Can I take this and use it again? And the answer, in short, is you could. You're just going to get a lighter project each time because there's not as much ink in the paper to go onto your next project, okay? Now, can you recolor this? Sure, you sure can. Just remember, we use regular copy paper, so if it gets a little saturated over time, maybe you want to graduate to some I've seen people use like nice marker paper, so then that way if they're doing like a lot of color lay down, that'll work too. Okay, so we have our first project. Now let's go ahead and do our second one. How am I doing on time? I got 20 minutes. Okay.
Yeah, we're looking good.
Okay. Okay, so I think for this one, I'm gonna do a full color, so then that way you guys can see what like it looks like when you color outside the lines kind of thing. So I'm just gonna go ahead and do like a rainbow type of effect. So I'm just using the red from the primary pack. Now we do have a red in the original pack too, so you guys, what you guys had the markers in front of you, like for example, the caps are looking kind of similar, but they are true different reds. Same with the orange and the blues and the green. So if anybody ever asked, they are different. Okay, so now I'm going to take the orange from the primary pack. This is called Carrot.
We do have a real quick question. Do the colors blend?
They do blend. They do blend. They are everything that we make, you know, from the stamp pad to anything that's ink, right? That's by Artesprix. The stamp pad, the ink refill, and the markers, they're all water-based. So that gives another area for makers to get creative. You know, they put like little, this is just water, you know, and I've seen them do some really cool things since they're water-based. And that's what's just so nice about the chisel tip. Like if I was to try to do this with like a round tip or a fine tip, I mean, I would be here for days. Like there's no way I could have done that very quickly. So that's why I really, really like the chisel tip. Okay, now I'm going to use blue from the primary pack. Sorry guys, I'm concentrating on coloring so hard. I just want to make a nice, pretty picture for you all. Okay, now I'm going to do green from the original. And I know I'm not supposed to talk about anything that we're working on, but I know that they're going to ask you because they ask us. Stamp pads in different colors, they're coming. They're coming. And our stamp pad is patent pending as well. So markers are patented and stamp pad is patent pending. Okay, red, orange, yellow, blue, green, purple. And like I mentioned, I'm coloring outside the lines because I don't want there to be any white in my on my bag tag. I want it to be full color. Okay, and then pink. And these, you know, because they're water-based, you know, they do color like a Crayola marker. I was talking about with the We Are Memory Keeper markers, and like if you do a side-by-side, you know how sometimes markers can be scratchy? Ours are not like that. They just glide across the paper. Okay, so here is my finished project. And another really cool thing about Iron-on-Ink is we don't have to press this right now. Like if I was like, you know, school bus is here, gotta go. This does not have to be pressed right now. It doesn't have to be pressed next week. It doesn't have to be pressed next month. It can be pressed whenever you want. We have pressed things over a year old. So that is a frequently asked question. Okay, so I'm going to cut this down again just to give myself some room to work with for my sublimation sandwich. Okay. And let's do the other side of this white bag tag. And I'm actually going to reuse my pieces of heat tape too. Our heat tape is a stronghold tape. So because it has that strong tack, that means there's tack left over from our, you know, it's just easily removed. So I'm actually going to reuse our tape as well. So that's something to, you know, makers love, or excuse me, let me rephrase that statement. They hate waste. So they love that the tape can be reused. Okay. Now, I don't want my original design, right? I don't want my original design to be affected. So I'm not going to tape it like over this, right? I'm going to tape it maybe more like on the corners, and instead, like before where I put the piece of tape like this, I'm going to do it like vertically, right? So I hear an echo. Uh-oh.
A real quick question, Ashley, somebody is asking, can you use the markers on the stamp pad to make colored stamped images, or does it dry too quickly?
So what you should do if you want to do that, because that's how we got the idea for the stamp pad, is this lady was like running around Creativation between like our booth and the waffle flower booth, and she was like taking our markers and like coloring on stamps. So I would color on stamps, or I would take, I don't have like a Ziploc bag, but I would take, because they're water based, it makes things really easy. So you would take a marker, maybe take a Ziploc bag, color on the Ziploc bag, maybe add a squirt of water to it, and then stamp. Or you can just tell them we're working on more colors. They're coming. We're really close to getting those in like manufactured, so they're coming. Okay. So here is how I taped, you guys. Like I said, I wanted to avoid affecting my current design, so I just put it at the top and at the bottom this way, as opposed to like over my project. So something you want to think about. And then here's my protective paper from the first time. I'm just going to go ahead and reuse it, no problem. Double check that my heat press is still at 400 and we're good to go. So I'm just going to put it on here. And and again, my design, the rainbow design is on top and it's face down. So that way it hits the heat first, and then 45 seconds and we're good to go. And while that's going, before I came on, I just did this one real quick. It just says hello friend, and it has some hearts. And that's also from the sublimation stamp set. So I'm going to take my metal bag, or excuse me, my maple bag tag, and we're going to go ahead and get this one set up. And something else to think about, just as you guys are learning all about sublimation, these are different thicknesses, okay? So the maple bag tag is much thicker than the metal bag tag. So even though they have different times, when it's the same amount of time, transfer time, people are very tempted to do two at the same time. But because they're different thicknesses, you don't want to do that, because then the metal might not get as much pressure. Okay, so I've got my heat gloves because this is hot, hot, hot. And if someone doesn't have heat gloves, they can, let it cool down. That's an option, of course, or they can use like an oven mitt or something. Okay, so I've got so you guys can see that my protective paper was really important that time because I colored outside the lines. Now question, can I reuse this? I wouldn't suggest it because it has all that ink on there. Now, could you cut out the middle maybe and use it for a keychain or something like that? Of course, you just want to avoid wherever there might have been any ink. And then I'm going to go ahead and do my peak test. It looks awesome. And same thing goes with the tape. It has ink on it because I colored outside the line, so I probably wouldn't reuse that again. And there we go. And there's the other side. So now you have a double-sided project. So even though you have one blank, it's almost like two projects since it's double-sided. So let's go ahead and do the maple one real quick, just so we can see a comparison. And I can use this piece because it doesn't have any ink on it. And then I'm just going to go ahead and cut myself a new piece for my other side. Okay, so I've got my piece on the bottom, or excuse me, yep, it's going to be my piece on the bottom because I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to put my other piece on top.
Actually, when you pull the metal off the heat press, is the ink sticky or is it still wet, or it's completely dry to touch?
Completely dry. It's like, that's what's so cool. Whenever we go do Creativation, we host a make and take, and I'll be like this. I've got my little thing, my heat press, and I'll just I have my heat gloves on. I rip it off, and then I just put it on this project mat because it's, in addition to it being great for transferring, it's also great to protect your work surface from any high heat or things like that. So I like to suggest it as a cool down area, maybe for people who already have a heat press, right? Like, what do I need a project mat for if I have a heat press? I would suggest it to use as a cool down area. So I just take it, you know, do my peak test, make sure it's good, and then I just put it right down on their project mat, and I just say, once it's cool to the touch, you're good to go.
Okay.
And so, so anyway, so I got my design face down on my press, and this is 400 degrees too, but it's 60 seconds. So I'm just going to change my time to 60 seconds, and then press. And I could tell, I don't know if you guys could tell, but I had to push a little harder because I didn't adjust my pressure because it's thicker, but that's fine. So just to your question, I can't pick this up because I don't have my nails. There we go. So I can just scratch, scratch, scratch. I can rub, rub, rub. I mean, now it's just like warm to the touch, but this is not going anywhere. I mean, when we mean permanent, when we mean lifetime, we mean it. We have taken that traditional sublimation that you guys know and you guys see all the time. You might be wearing things that are sublimation right now. We've taken that technology and we've put it in a line of arts and crafts supplies so that makers, they can essentially get started with sublimation without spending whipping out their checkbook, right? Because those sublimation printers are pricey and the ink is, so it's just a great way for makers to experience sublimation. Okay, so 3, 2, 1. Okay, peak test, looking great. And there we go. And this is double-sided as well. So just to give you a comparison, it just depends on what type of look you're going for. You can go for the stark white or you can go for the natural wood. Both are a great option. So that's actually the end of my demo. The only other thing that I thought about is I do have the products back here. So if there's anything that anybody wanted to see or talk about, anything in particular, like the project mat or the heat tape, those, you know, come like this. And so everything's packaged Artesprix. Something else that we actually just got our second Notions order, which was great. I'm super thrilled about that. So that's great news. And one of the things that, and I'm so thrilled, but I have to admit I'm surprised, is that you guys ordered more of the stencil. And we just really made that people would put the pieces together, right? Like, what are things that I can use in my makerspace that'll help me with Iron-on-Ink? So we essentially just made a nice alphabet and we just packaged it backwards so that people would put the pieces together as far as mirroring and that kind of thing. So that was great to see that that you guys ended up ordering more of these. That's awesome. But I don't know if the wheels are turning. You essentially can take any stencil, flip it over, and use it for Iron-on-Ink. Does anybody have any questions? Any more questions?
Oh, Travis has a real quick question.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
So let's say I'm making a bumblebee going, you know, black and yellow, black and yellow. Do you have to worry about the yellow marker tip being black on it and ruining or anything, or do I need to let it dry?
So it is you know, you do want to, that's a great question. You do want to treat them like a marker, right? So if I was going to do a bumblebee, I would do the yellow first and then do the black. You know, it does operate like a marker, you know. So great question. You do want to have that, you know, some of those traditional marker usage do's and don'ts. You want to follow that here as well. And another thing, and I don't know if anybody noticed when I but when I showed you before I did my transfer, the color on the paper will seem muted. Okay, it won't, you know, and that's why the cap is, you know, is a representation of what the final color will look like. So we'll be at a make and take and they'll say, there's something wrong with this orange. And I said, no, there's nothing wrong with that orange. And if you look at a traditional sublimation printout from a sublimation printer, those two are muted and dull, if you will. And then when the transfer process happens, everything comes to life. So our slogan used to be, have you seen the magic? And that's why, because it literally is just like, wow, the reveal's the best part.
I don't see anything
else.
I think it's good.
Great. Well, I really, really enjoyed this, and I know I said it 1,000 times, but I'm gonna say it one more time. We are so excited to be working with Notions, and we can't wait to continue to bring you guys some innovative stuff. And Notions will be the first to know, right? Because you guys got to let everybody else know, so it's like a win-win all around. And we're really looking forward to developing a long-lasting relationship with you all.
Great.
Thank you.
Ashley.
You're so welcome, guys. Have a great rest of the week, and looking forward to next time.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.